how can we trade on the M5 and understand the higher time frame purpose? A lot of people are surprised that I don't trade the higher time frame, and probably you misunderstood when I said that I don't trade the higher time frame. When I said that is that I actually don't switch between the time frames. I've put them here because I started doing a lot of stock market, and I usually just check at the SPX and NASDAQ on the daily and the H1 because these are slower stocks. But usually I never move from the M5. I just go below the M1 and the 30 seconds. For the sake of this video, I also added the M15 so you guys can see it. The fact that I don't go on higher time frame doesn't mean that I don't understand the purpose behind it. So let's look together an example. As you can see, coming out of Asia, we have this push here, have this little zone, and then we have Asia high. Then we have our little whatever false breakout structure because structural switch has been done. Price closed below. We have valid liquidity above here, right? And as you can see, we have our Asia midline with this zone here. But I know for a fact that this zone is a higher time frame decisional POI. So for some of you guys that don't know what the decisional POI is, we will do a video on it. But to be simple, a decisional POI is a POI that led to a new high. An extreme POI, it's a POI that is at the extreme of the leg. But we'll discuss about that in another video. As you can see, I marked this zone, and this is a higher time frame POI. Let's go on M15, and you can see it. There's even an imbalance. So what you need to do is train your eyes to understand that it's simple math, right? If you start the candle at each candles are 5 minutes. So from this one at 4 a.m., 1, 2, 3, this means that this here, these 3 candles are a M15 candle. Let's go check and see if we can confirm this. Here we go. You can see it. It's perfectly the M15 candle. Because 3 candles, it's simple, right? 1, 2, 3. 5 times 3 equals 15, right? So just so you understand that, I understand that this zone here, based on that false breakout structure, will have more sense to hold because it's a higher time frame zone. Let's continue and find another example. The same thing here, that we have our equal lows here, in faking those equal lows again, inducing low, and we come and we mitigate something here, right? And all this is probably again the same thing. Let's go on M15. Is it an M15? Yeah, it's an M15 again, right? Fills the imbalance, and as we can see, that zone has been respected. So it's important to understand that we don't trade from the higher time frame. Like, I don't go physically on a higher time frame, and also I don't take a position like this. But as justification purpose and also understanding higher time frame purpose, it's important to understand these zones on the M5. I don't have time to go in all these time frames and waste tremendous time just to find something. And this is exactly the way I do it. So as you can see here, it induces low, goes in this zone. Now let's go on M1 and we can see perfect equal highs here, liquidity being built. And here you have your first entry here, very aggressive, right? And then you have your confirmed one with the imbalance here that I actually took. It's insane how when I'm doing these exercises for you guys, my brain remembers those trades that I took. It's kind of funny. And that's it, right? So from the M5, we have the higher time frame understanding. Let's push it even higher. Now, some of you guys would say, okay, Joe, then if we see this here and this here, how come this isn't an FBOSS? And you are right. And this is why the FBOSS needs to make sense. You need to understand that it's not because there's a structural shift that it's automatically an FBOSS. It needs to have sense, right? We have our mini FBOSS here. We induce the equal highs. Look how perfectly those equal highs are. 1, 2, 3, all this, right? We fake them. You can see the reaction, right? The rejection candle, like they call. And with speed, we go higher. And remember, every single time that we have an Asia high or an Asia low inducement or any type of structural inducement valid, we have to look to the left. And in this case, we can see here, we filled all this imbalance, right? We come here, and this is what we call again a higher time frame POI. Have I switched time frames? No. You can press shift on your key on your keyboard and click, and you can see exactly what would be this candle, right? So we're probably looking at an H1 candle. No, 30 minutes candle. 30 minutes candle. That's it. Can you see it? And look how this one is also perfectly put. Look at this one, right? It's just simple maths. So it's important to understand and not try to deform what I said. Is I understand the higher time frame purpose from my M5 time frame. And since we have that inducement high, right, valid with a higher time frame purpose completed, because you can see it here, right? Push lower, comes back, mitigate their entry. Now this makes more sense to become a relevant breakout structure. Why? Because it makes sense based on what we just discussed. And as we see, again, price comes back and mitigate this zone as a higher time frame. Again, POI perfectly to go lower, right? Does that make sense? And now again, price goes lower. Let's go on to M15 so you can understand. And now things get interesting and you're going to be confused now. We have this here, right? Comes back, mitigates this. But now here, oh, and this is where you go and you see that this now inducement low mitigating this zone creates also a false breakout structure. So let's go on a higher time frame. We can see it here. The structures here. So if this is a false breakout structure, this zone above become this zone here, this one here, sorry, my mistake. I need to remove that orange thing. That zone here becomes the perfect smart money trap. And you can see it. Look how perfectly it reacts. Comes back, and you can even find entries here to go higher. Okay? And it's rinse and repeat. And now let's just for fun try to identify the liquidity, right? So we have, oops, wrong thing. Here we go. We have here stop losses. Why? Because we have a structural high here. Again, if you remember, I said that these are ghost candles. So if you doubt about it, let's just take this, right? There's no problem. No problem. It all makes sense afterwards. Now price pushes higher again. New structural low created. Then higher. Entries are black lines. Stop losses are red lines. Now at this relevant break of structure, we have an entry. So this means that we have stop losses here. Price breaks and retest. Breaks lower here. See? Inducing with speed and momentum. Stop losses here. Now price comes here, right? Tries to fake the equal lows again. So at this point, at one point, this candle was full, right? Pushing with speed. People are FOMOing, entering. And we have here a less highly confirmed equal lows because there's no real structural high made to the upside here. But we understand because of Asia low and this push led to the new high. And it's just, again, just to understand, not to trade from it. So don't panic. Don't try to take trades out of those equal lows immediately. No. Now price pushes lower, higher, sorry. Now we have, again, the speed momentum, no doubts. We have stop losses here, right? And there is, yes, stop losses all here and all those little trend lines. I'm just trying to talk about the structural points now. And price then pushes. And now let's check only the remaining liquidity. Same thing, same practice. This is done, this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done. Oops. This is done, right? We target the liquidity, and all this understanding on the M5 can be clearly seen on M15, on 30 minutes, whatever time frame you want. So it's important to understand that every single zone that has multiple candles are often higher time frame POI, right? So the same thing that we have higher time frame structures inside here, right? Those pullbacks or whatever you call it, we do have, oops, that's the opposite. I wanted to do this here. God damn it. That wasn't clear at all. Right? Like such here, those little in the lower time frame here, you can have all sorts of complex structural points, right? It's really important to understand that the fact that I don't go on a higher time frame doesn't mean that I don't understand, right? The higher time frame, I just don't trade it. But the concept of the purpose of higher time frame is really important because that's what drives the price. I'm not ignorant on the fact that higher time frame pushes the price. I do understand, but that's not the way I trade. And remember, the way I trade doesn't mean that it's the only way. I have students that trade the daily, that look at 4-hour time frame, H1. Trade the way you want to trade and use the technique you want to use. My goal is just to guide you the way I do it because it works for me. So I'm a living proof that it works. So I'm just guiding you and explaining you the way I do it. If you think that trading on the M5 is too complex, you don't have to do it. But remember, and this is something a lot of people don't agree with it, but having a big screen will really help you in your trading because I have a 32-inch 2K monitor, and I'm going to be honest, it helps me a lot to be able to zoom and see those candles, right? So I would recommend you to look at a bigger screen if possible. So I hope you guys enjoyed this hard time frame purpose on the M5, or we can call it maybe hard time frame understanding on the M5. Catch you guys in the next video.